Hi everyone, welcome to Tria Accelerator program. We've just opened up the room, so just give everyone a bit of time as they start joining the discussion.
Kate, are we ready to start?
Yes, we've just gone live.
So
we're just giving everybody time to join because it takes a bit of time for everyone to click into the official room.
okay, good. So you will let me know when, yeah?
Yep, you will be the next speaker after me. I will let you know.
Yeah, good. I can't see all of you. But...
All right, everyone, thank you for coming today. Welcome to the 3i Accelerator program. We are very, very happy to showcase the 3 companies who are graduating from our very first 3i Accelerator cohort. The 3i program is really built around 3 core principles: ideate, inoculate, and ignite. So for ideate, we really want to train our startups to be able to think bigger. And it's not just about the technology that they have, but really where their technology sits within the entire ecosystem and what other benefits and values they can bring to the ecosystem. Inoculate is about business development. It's about having the right growth media suited to your startup. And besides being the first demo day that we're running, we're also very excited that we can have our first demo day here in the new Trendlines Afik office. And this is really the place, when we designed this office, to be a place of innovation. As you can see from this area behind me, it's really a place where we want our startups to sit together and discuss, bounce ideas off each other, and really help to build each other. Because being an accelerator and incubator, it's not just about building your own company, it's about building a community of people as well. So that's what we wanted to inculcate in the startups with Inoculate. And lastly, ignite. It's no point building a fantastic company if you're not able to showcase your company or tell people what your company is about. So that's really the last goal that we have of the accelerator. It's to be able to showcase the companies that exactly like what we're doing today. So over the last 3 months, our companies have gone through different stages of this incubator. In May, during the ideate process, we put our startups through a brand storytelling process to really break down their company and understand what the company is about. Are they solving the right problems? Do they have the right technology for the problem that they want to solve? And whether it's the right fit for the industry at this point in time. June was our inoculate process. They had one-on-one mentorings with different Trendlines mentors. They met up with different companies. We introduced them to many of our corporate partners, sales partners, and that's where they learned to build their business model. And this whole idea of business model building and business development is what leads us right into July. July was the month where they worked hard to build their pitch, streamline the message, and really be ready and prepared to share what they wanted to tell the world. And all of this culminates in today's demo day. So we're very, very excited to be able to showcase the 3 companies that are graduating. Just some general admin before we begin. After this, we will have an opening address, a welcome address by Dr. Nita Kadish, followed by an opening speech by Mr. Johnny Teo. The 3 companies that are presenting today are Singapore Coconut Company, Salivate Technologies, and Ambit Robotics. So I'm sure they'll be more than excited to tell you what they have in stock for you. And this is the time allocation that we have for each company. Each company will be given 25 minutes to present. The actual presentation will only take 10 minutes, followed by a 10-minute Q&A by our panel. And lastly, our audience will have 5 minutes to ask questions. You'll realize that you're unable to speak. So if you have any questions, we hope that you'll type in these questions, and I will help moderate and choose the questions to ask our startups. So without further ado, I'd like to invite Dr. Nita Kadish to give her welcome address. Nita, please. Sorry, Nita, you're on mute.
Is that okay?
Yes, that's fantastic. Welcome,
Hi,
Lindsay.
hi everybody. Good afternoon back there, and good morning to everyone here in Israel and Europe. Thank you, Kit. I would like to thank all of you to join the AFIC first demo day. Many of you from multiple countries, including Europe, Israel, Singapore, of course, Japan, and Australia. We are very excited to have you all with us today. I would like to first thank our three honored panelists that joined us today, and they will challenge the startups. Mr. Johnny Teo, Executive Director from Enterprise Singapore, Mr. Steve Rhodes, CEO and Chairman from Trendlines Group, and Mr. Janet Chia, Director, Heritage Capital Management. At the same time, I would like to say thank you and salute to our three startups, Ambit Robotics, Accelerator Technology, and Singapore Coconut Company that had the courage, the commitment to go all the way together with us. And as we know, entrepreneurs are entrepreneurs are entrepreneurs. And the most important things for them is their technology, their company. They totally believe that this is the best ever. And it should be like that, you know. But yet, they were so open-minded. They were so willing to hear and to work with us in order for them to take their venture a step further, or maybe a step deeper, maybe to open their view on the business strategy, on the way how they can do it. And for that, I really want to thank you, because one of the most important thing is to see that you have an enthusiasm in the persona, in the entrepreneur, but at the same time, the willingness to listen and to understand that maybe there is someone there that can give you a good advice, and you did it. And for that really thank you. But we wouldn't be here today, and all that wouldn't happen if not of Kit Lu. So Kit, thank you very much for everything you did. And what was really surprising for me to see is that you became an entrepreneur yourself. So you started to think like an entrepreneur. You were full of enthusiasm, and your feedback was fast, and you were adopting changes, and you did all that, you know, it's like when something unexpected happened, you deal with that, and yet you had your timetable, which you were able to have everything in time. So I believe that this is a perfect combination between Tel Aviv and Singapore. So you can do it differently, but then you can do it on time and in a perfect manner. Thank you very much, Keith. And of course, I would like to thank Anton, Sarai, and all the entire Trendlines team that was there along the way to help and to support this process. And then the idea, I want to repeat what Keith already explained about the 3I Accelerator program, but this is really one part of what Trendlines and AFIC now in Singapore is doing. We are there along the value chain from the beginning, from the ideation until taking the product to the market and to the IPO and to exit. So we are not ignoring the fact that there are some technologies and a lot of entrepreneurs that they are only at the beginning, and they need somebody to really give them a framework and some advice and some tools to take this great idea along the way to the market. So in Israel, we call it pre-incubation or co-creation. In Singapore, we call it acceleration, but the idea is the same, is to be there with the idea and give all the other layers to make it a really success company. So we started all that in December 19. When was that? I mean, do we remember what was how our life looks in December 19? It's like a different time. Nobody guessed that 2020 will be such an interesting year. And I'm not going to speak about COVID, not at all. I mean, I'm going to leave this queen with its corn at the side and just want to speak about the human being spirit, about the ability to continue and to be dedicated to what we decided that we want to achieve. So it was a crazy time, and we took a moment to take a deep breath, and then we looked at our missions, our KPIs, our goals, and we re-plan our work. And this day, today, when we are presenting the results of 3 or 4 months of very intensive work, is a celebration for that, for the commitment, for the deep knowledge that we can do even if everything is going crazy around us. And you know, this is a basic factor in Darwin evolution. Not the stronger, not the biggest that will survive, is the one that can adapt to changes. And I think that what we did, all of us, not only in AFIC, not only in Trendlines, all this amazing agri-food ecosystem all over show that we could do that. And I'm grateful to all of us that we did that. So to our entrepreneur that are going to show their technology, I just want to welcome you and tell you that now you are part of a much larger family, the Trendlines family of international founders, entrepreneurs, startups, and major multinational companies. And this will open many more doors for you in the future to take your company to the market and much more. And last but not least, I would like to express my gratitude to all of the government agents in Singapore who have worked closely with us in making this program a success. EDB, ESG, SFA, your continuous support and trust in us is something that we hold dearly. We will work closely with each one of you to tackle our collective goal of 30 by 30 in order to solve food security problems, both in the present and of course in the future. And now with that, I would like to hand the time over to Mr. Jenny Teo from Enterprise Singapore to give his speech for opening. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Nitza, and thank you, Keith. Hi, everyone. I'm Johnny from Enterprise Singapore. To the friends at Trendlines, fellow panelists, and also participants in the Zoom call, a very good afternoon or morning, depending on where you are. As a very brief intro to those of you who may be less familiar, Enterprise Singapore is the government agency leading Singapore's enterprise development efforts and helping Singapore enterprises grow and globalize. To achieve this, we focus on 3 main areas: raising productivity, strengthening innovation, and accelerating internationalization. It is my honor and pleasure to join all of you here today at AFIC's inaugural 3i Accelerator Program's Demo Day. I would also like to extend my heartiest congrats to the Trendlines team and the graduating cohort of startups in getting this far. And achieving such a major milestone despite the COVID-19 pandemic over the past few months is certainly no mean feat. Executing this amidst the travel restrictions, social distancing, and work from home measures. Perhaps some of us may wonder whether it was worthwhile to push this hard for so long, given the circumstance. However, it was important that we do not lose sight of the long-term goal as well. According to the Asia Food Challenge report released by PwC, Rabobank, and Temasek, an additional $800 billion worth of investments will be needed for a rapidly growing Asian population to feed itself sustainably over the next decade. Moreover, as someone mentioned earlier, an increasing cadence and severity of threats to our highly globalized food chain has also made the need to invest in agri-food technologies even more pertinent. There is therefore a clear commercial demand regionally and food resiliency desires agri-food companies can seek to fulfill. And while Singapore is not a traditional agriculture country, our strong innovation climate makes it conducive for agriculture technologies to experiment and take root. Over the past 2 years, much work has been invested to rejuvenate the agri-food ecosystem as part of a multi-agency effort for which Enterprise Singapore is a part of, that Nitza mentioned earlier. Through these collective efforts, we have developed a 30 by 30 vision, as well as a Food Innovate platform, which a number of you may have become familiar. We've also enhanced the access to early stage financing via the setup of co-investment partnerships, as well as anchoring global expertise in the agri-food domain with established players. We have today more than 10 such intermediaries that entrepreneurs and startups can collaborate with. And this is an area we'll continue to pay close attention to and strengthen moving ahead to ensure ecosystem remains attractive and conducive in supporting the sector. And we look forward to the upcoming Agri-Food Innovation Park, which was announced last year, where agencies have also made steady progress. This will be an infrastructure platform located in the northwestern part of Singapore, where R&D, test bedding, and early scale-up activities will be co-located and possible for promising local and foreign industry players to leverage and grow quickly. Against all this, we are seeing some interesting companies that emerge and done well, such as Shiok Meats, a cell-based clean meat company focused on crustacean protein, Singgrow, a precision agri-tech firm that has cultivated strawberries adapted for tropical climates. And in Ag Funder's first ever report this year on ASEAN's agri-food tech ecosystem, Singapore has also ranked first when it came to investment fundraising, attracting over $170 million across nearly 40 deals. And now, with an established player like Trendlines and its track record, I'm confident we can do more collaboratively to accelerate the commercialization pathways and enhance the opportunities of the startups mentioned, so that they will have a better chance of succeeding on the global stage. We have seen the good work and impact that the Trendlines group have brought to bear on the medical front in Singapore, and we are confident of the good things that will continue to come in the agri-food domain. My team and I therefore look forward to working more closely with Trendlines AFIC and the Trendlines Agri-Food Fund to drive the growth of the ecosystem here and help more companies venture into new markets. Beyond the graduating cohort of startups today, I'm confident the 3I Accelerator program is here to stay and will keep churning out interesting companies and create investment opportunities the Agri-Food Fund and investors in this region can look at. In closing, I would like to thank the Trendlines team once again for having me and my colleagues on board. And to the 3 startups who will be making our pitches shortly, I look forward to hearing your stories and see how my team and AFIC may support you in the journey ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. John Nitio. Thanks, Nita, as well. All right, before we begin, I'd just like to remind all our guests that you are able to type in questions that you have, and we'll help you ask these questions on behalf of you guys. So if you have any questions, it's in the chat. The chat is found at the bottom. You just click it and you can just send it to all panelists and all attendees. And from there, we will curate and choose the questions to ask. So without further ado, I'd like to invite our first company, Singapore Coconut Company, to make their presentation. Angie, over to you.
Sorry, technical explorations. Hang on. Let me share my screen. A second.
Do you need help sharing the screen?
Let me click on it and then show.
So we have some IT help.
Oh, thank you. Do I maximize this, Anton? Yeah, I gotta maximize, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've shared it. Your screen sharing.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know how to get to the kind of display view. Sorry, guys.
Full screen, yeah.
Single page view?
Mm.
Thank you, thank you.
This should be good.
Okay. So, you know, just now I could see the, let me see, if I go back to this, this is it, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sorry, I think we changed the settings a bit from just now.
This should work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now it feels right. Okay. Okay. So we're a Singapore Coconut Company, and so far in all the years we've been working on this project, it is not immediately apparent why Singapore and coconut go together. But to that, I have only one thing to say: Belgian chocolates. They don't grow any cacao in Belgium, but yet, you know, an association is naturally formed these days. Okay, so I think I have to scroll down. Sorry, it's not there. Okay, so we started this project because we couldn't find anything that was all of these three things that we cared about. The first thing that we make food that's healthy for humans. The second thing, we wanted what we made to be plant-based for all the reasons. And also, we wanted it to be affordable for a majority of us. So we couldn't find anything that ticked all three boxes, and so we started this project because we thought this is where someone needs to be. And since COVID started, I mean, all of this year, it's become even clearer that the global food system needs some new ideas, you know, fresh thinking. So here we are. In the current industry process, at least in coconut processing, not very much has changed in the last 50 years. You either have an oil process or a milk process. So you press for oil and you get a byproduct, or you press for milk and you get a byproduct. These processes often result in high wastage, low yields, and then you have low value byproducts at the end of it. And I say low yields because, you know, typically in a coconut processing environment, when you press for coconut milk, you leave behind 60% on average of the coconut fat behind in the residue. And we think that's too much. We think we can do a lot better than that. So how we do it is our technology for processing is adjustable within a range. So we could make a range of different things and we can adjust that on a day-to-day basis. All of our products are high-value products with no byproducts. We can also do high capacity, and our system supports automation so that we're not dependent upon a lot of human labor to produce these foods. A little bit more about our technology. We have flexibility baked in. So we have a wide range of products that we can make, as you can see, and this is from the same single process. And we adjust that on a kind of like a dial. So coconut goes in and we decide, okay, today we can do this 2 products, let's say oil and powder, or tomorrow, depending on customer demand, we can make a different 2 or 3 products. And all of these nutrient-dense products feed into our range of vegan dairy alternatives. They are base ingredients. As you can see on this very basic comparison table for the old processes and what we work on, we extract far more value out of each precious coconut than what is usually done now in the industry. And we think that for a company like us, this is a great time to be alive, to be operating. For the first time in human history, we're at a juncture where animal product consumption is slowing down. And out of the plant-based products that are on the ascendance, dairy alternatives are the largest segment. So consumers are expecting not just higher quality and better nutrition as a given. That's expected already, but they also want more transparency, not only where their food is from, but also how it's produced. They don't want any sneaky additives, being put in without being honest about it. And also they care more than ever about how the production of their food affects the environment. And this year in particular, due to the pandemic, all of these factors are amplified. Okay, so on the slide, we're looking at the size of the global dairy alternatives market. That is 21 billion USD for 2020. That's pretty decent. Like out of all the reasons that people are giving for having less animal products and switching more to plant-based, health is a top reason. So we think that by addressing the health conscious segment of people who are trying to switch to plant-based, that's a good space to be. Now we see the competition not really so much as other plant-based producers. The market has so much to grow that really we're all working on the same aim, I think, which is to drive the switch to plant-based dairy for everybody's sake. The three main factors that I think are most important in this is taste, price, and health. For taste, it is because if something tastes bad, even if it's cheap and healthy, you just won't buy it again, especially for the segment of the market who are flexitarian. Taste is paramount. For price and health, I bought a $15 carton of plant milk last week, but it's delicious and it's healthy, but I couldn't do it every day. I couldn't buy the same every week. It's not sustainable, especially in the economic conditions that we're going to be moving forward in. And health, if somebody is switching to plant-based for health, that product has to be healthy. If not, there's no point. So we believe people shouldn't have to make do. We want it to be an easy switch. And with our base ingredients, that's going to be easy. What we make, our milk base, it is not a traditional coconut cream product. First of all, it's shelf stable without having to do expensive packaging systems with the likes of Tetra Pak or those other things that we're more familiar with. It also ships without water weight. So instead of 5 containers going across the ocean, we might only have 1. And all that drives towards the affordability and also the drive towards local. This can be made locally anywhere. That contributes to the affordability, and all these nutrient-dense ingredients can then be accessible to more people, and that's what we're happy about. What we have here is a perfect plant-based food building block. It solves some of the current problems we have in plant dairy to do with texture and so on, or maybe it's too much of a grassy taste. So what we have is a quite clean and mild taste profile. For example, we could make a plant-based butter without necessarily using industrial oils. One of my pet peeves is that I try to get a plant-based fat, a butter, and half of it is sunflower oil or rapeseed oil. The other example I'm going to draw is that we can make a thick and rich Greek-style yogurt, and that's all plant-based. It doesn't mean that it can't be creamy just because it's not come from an animal. So, I think we've got a long way to go. We've got a lot that we can tackle very capably. I think we have a complete solution in the making. We've got good ingredients. It's going to make good food, and coconut is just a start. It's got nice fat content that gives you a creamy mouthfeel, and you don't have to compromise and have hormones, antibiotics, digestive irritation, or environmental impact. to get that creamy mouthfeel. Our team, we are backed with 40 years of food processing expertise. Danny over here has great consumer packaged goods experience, and and Chi, all of us together, we have the right complementary set of skills to push this project forward in order to make the greatest impact possible of helping the world switch to plant dairy. Thank you. Happy to take any questions.
Yep. So Keith, I'll just go ahead. Yeah. Thanks, Angie, for the wonderful presentation. And it looks like you have a very strong team. Just to kickstart a couple of questions. Number one, what you have is a process technology, or are you coming out with equipment that will be packaged as a product? And number two, how are you going to sell this technology or solution, and who are your end target customers?
So what we have is a processing technology. We aren't necessarily looking to sell the technology to manufacturers per se, but we can either sell ingredients or we can go straight into a consumer brand, and we can partner with various people around the world in order to do that. But no, we're not selling equipment.
So you're selling the end product. You may manufacture it on your own, or you partner someone to do it.
Yeah, that's it. That's the plan.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, Angie. Thank you for sharing. Some follow-on questions as well from Johnny. I would like to understand a little bit more about, in terms of your production process, because looks like it's a know-how. How do you intend to protect that know-how? Secondly, as well, in terms of the value proposition when you are selling as an ingredient, how would the end product, be it a yogurt, milk, cream, or butter, how would that compare to other plant-based alternatives in terms of pricing?
So, sorry, that was the first question again, Janet. Protecting.
Defensibility, yes.
Okay, so the first thing I'll say is that we definitely have patentable technology, and definitely working towards a multifaceted IP strategy, and that will in part be driven by what our go-to-market strategy eventually will be. In terms of the final price to consumers, if we're selling as an ingredient, it is higher per coconut to sell, but because of our technology, we actually do very economical production, because we save on labor, we do automation. That's actually up to us to set. And so not having a great number of middlemen will help us to get an affordable price on the final products to end consumers. So if we're selling it as an ingredient, then that will be up to us to partner and say, okay, I can compromise a bit on this profit margin, because we really do want to get plant-based out to more people. And there are many ways to square it, really, I feel.
Angie, thanks very much for the presentation. I think you're absolutely right that you're in a good space. I believe that all of us should be reducing the amount of dairy and meat that we eat, primarily if we want to see the world survive. The contribution to global warming that the dairy industry and the meat industry makes is tremendous. And although I'm not an advocate of giving up meat and dairy completely, I do think that we should all be reducing our consumption. So I think you're in a good space. I'm curious, is the process that you have applicable to other food products as well, to other plants, or is it only coconut?
Coconut is just the start. It's applicable to several other plant-based foods, and due to a lack of resources, we have to concentrate. So this is where we are now. We've got to a really good place on a coconut-based product, and really, depending on who we work with going forward and the resources that we have access to, then other plant-based materials can definitely be explored, and that's something that's really, really exciting for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have one question from the audience. How do you benchmark your product against other plant-based ingredients that are currently serving the dairy market? What's the main difference that you see between your products and what's currently available on the shelf?
I think that being coconut-based, it's healthy in many ways because often people think of fat. Coconut's a high-fat product. Often people think of fat as something harmful, but really it's about how you process the fat so that it's healthy, and then having a balance. So I would, the factors that I look at most often are health and price, and health and price. So it has to be healthy, and then it has to be affordable. So I was saying, last week I bought $15 for plant milk. Most of the plant-based milks out there, in Singapore anyway, that's being sold at $6 to $7 per liter. So that I think is quite high, considering you get 2 packs of cow milk for $5 or less. So, right now I think everybody plant-based, and especially us, we're looking to drive down the price so that people can switch to plant-based more consistently.
Okay, we have one last question. For the vegan milk base that you've spoken about, would it be a very strong coconut smell? Are you able to use it in your coffee?
We can. So I wouldn't put it directly into the coffee, but after formulation, there is really quite only a mild flavor. We think that in general, for plant-based, not everybody is a huge fan of coconut flavor in everything. And I think the research has shown that to be true. With our process, actually, we have a milder taste profile because of the low heat. And therefore, I think it stacks up very well against things like, let's say, the older versions of soy milk that was quite grassy and, other things with stronger flavors.
All right, thank you very much. I think that's all the time you have today. Thanks, Angie. And we'll now give Vignesh a minute just to set up so that he can get ready for his presentation. Thank you very much, Angie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. We'd just like to seek your kind understanding as we take some time to swap between presenters because of some of the social distancing measures that are now put in place. It takes some time to wipe down the presentation station, put on their mask, and really just be safe at the same time. So just do bear with us and give us a minute. For the rest of the questions for the rest of you who typed in questions and we were unable to answer your questions, what we're going to do is that at the end of this presentation, we would send your questions to each of the startups, and we will consolidate it into a Q&A sort of spreadsheet, which we'll send to each of you via the Eventbrite email system. So your answers will still be answered. It's just that because of the lack of time, we are unable to answer all your questions live. Okay, I think Vignesh is getting ready to share your screen. All right, Vignesh, over to you.
Nice. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much, Trendlines, for giving me this opportunity. Before I start, I would like to play a very short video that summarizes what Accelerator Technologies is trying to do.
Cell technologies is a big and growing field with many practical applications. Growing cells, or cell culture, is a lot like farming. You need the right conditions to get a good yield. For most cells, cell culture requires the adhesion of cells to the proper substrate before they can proliferate to larger numbers and differentiate into the cell of choice. Unfortunately, many cells don't adhere properly, produce low yield, and may even have unwanted mutations. These factors, together with the expensive cell media, drives up the cost of production. However, we have made a breakthrough in cell technology. We've developed and patented the use of a revolutionary coating that allows higher cell adhesion. lets cells grow at least 2 times faster, and unlike biological or chemical coatings, have a very long shelf life. This drastically reduces cost of production, increases cell yield, and thus profit for most applications. This method is also customizable to different cell types and is compatible with present-day solutions. Our products will be used with different types of critical cells so as to overcome many global challenges, from medicine to food. Cellivate Technologies. We invite you to join us.
All right, so that summarizes what we're trying to do. Basically, we believe that we will be able to enable this clean meat revolution that's coming up. Let me explain a little bit more. So at Cellivate Technologies, we provide enabling technologies for clean meat companies to make clean meat possible. We have a proprietary technology, meaning we have IP on this technology, that allows cells to grow between 2 to 4 times faster than what's available today in the market. And what's interesting is that our product line seamlessly integrates into the value chain of the present cell-based meat companies. So we all know that the present meat industry is not sustainable due to ethical reasons, due to environmental reasons, and also from a practical point of view, this industry needs to be disrupted. So there are a few alternatives out there. There are plant-based meat, there are alternative protein sources like insects, but people in general still want the meat as they know it. And so for this, the only viable option is cell-based meat. So cell-based meat, as you can see in the diagram on the right, is basically taking some cells from the animal without killing the animal, growing these cells in the lab till we get enough cells, packaging it into meat as we know it, and using it for different applications. However, the entire industry is facing certain bottlenecks, which is why at present, cell-based meat is still not commercial. One of the bottlenecks is that it costs extremely high. For example, Shook Meats launched their shrimp dumplings last year, and it cost them about $5,000 as opposed to just 50 cents if you buy it from the market. It's also extremely time consuming to make these cell-based meat in the lab. And one of the key reasons for this is because it is very difficult to grow critical cells outside of the organism, outside of the animal itself. So it's very difficult for these cells to attach and to grow in the laboratory, making the cost extremely high and making it take such a long duration of time. So we at Cellivate, we have a technology which we believe can fix this. We have discovered that by having a unique combination of thin film metal oxides in different ratios, we are able to have cells adhere better and grow faster. So it's not a one-size-fits-all that fits for every cell type. Rather, it's optimized for different cell types that allows cells to attach better and grow faster. As you can see in the diagram on the bottom right, on the left side, you have cells growing without Cellivate Technologies coating, and on the right, you have cells growing on the coating optimized for the particular cell. And you can see that there is a gulf of difference, right? As I mentioned, this is a proprietary technology, and cells grow at least 2 to 4 times faster than available technologies out there. We have tried this with different cell lines, such as stem cells, seafood cells, bovine cells, and others. And based on this technology, we have come up with our product line. We call our product ProCyte. Pro has in promoting and Cyte for cells. If you look at the picture on the left, the rainbow-colored coating you see, that actually is the ProCyte coating. It's generally colorless, but the reason you can see it here is because we have manipulated the light. This coating here is about 14 nanometers thick, which is about 1,000 times thinner than the cell itself. And our product lines include cover slips and dishes, microcarriers, and scaffolds for the different stages of growing cells. So this here is the value chain of growing cells. You start by extracting the cells from the animal, you increase the cell numbers, you grow them in bioreactors to get the cell mass you need, and then you structure the cells. So in that same way, our different products come in play at the different stages of the value chain. We have cover slips and dishes for the initial growth of cells. Then we have microcarriers. Microcarriers are generally used in the pharma industry to have large scale-up of cells. So we have our own microcarriers for the scaling up of cells, and we have scaffolds for structuring cells into the meat as we know it. Right? And when we compare with what's available in the market, most of the companies out there either use plastic or glass, or they use organic coatings. So these organic coatings mimic what's in the body which allows cells to grow. But when we compare with something has productivity of growing cells over a duration of 48 hours, we see that we produce results at least 2 times better than organic coatings. So this is the tangible benefits, but we also have intangible benefits. Since ours is an inorganic coating, we have longer shelf life. We do not need special storage facilities to keep our product stable. We have higher functionality. The product, since we are working on the nano scale, our production costs are lower, and it's easier for us to reach high manufacturing standards such as GMP. Right? So based on this, the way we make money, our business model is as follows. We're not going to be selling meat directly to consumers, so it's going to be a business to business, a B2B model, where we would have standard ProCyte products for the different cells that we have already tested. And as I mentioned, we have already tested a few cell types out there, but there are many cells that we have not tested. So when customers come to us with those cells, we would customize the testing for those cells, and those chemistries would go back into our standard portfolio. Thus, it would widen our standard portfolio. And some of the cells that we have not tested or we have not had the opportunity to test are pork cells, fish cells, chicken, duck, and so on. So one question that may come up is that suppose the clean meat industry does not flourish, then where do we have a market? So it is noteworthy that this technology itself is part of a much larger market where the biotechnology space sits in. And the entire global cell culture market itself is a $50 billion market, growing at about 11 to 12% annually. A conservative estimate of just the cell culture vessels is about a $2.5 billion market. And over the next 5 years, we are confident based on our value to reach 5% of this market, right? So we have already got some market traction, though we are still relatively young. We have secured 2 launch customers, Cell Research Corp, which is the largest stem cell company in the region, and Coroscopy, which is a company in Europe. We are doing pilot tests with a few companies, both clean meat companies as well as some biotech companies. We have 3 letters of intents, 2 from our launch customers and 1 from a regional distributor. And we are in negotiations and doing pilot studies with a whole range of other companies. We are also working with a leading European company in food processing and manufacturing, and we are in the process of negotiating our first PO and revenue. Right? So this is our vision. We are confident that by this year we would generate our first revenue, and in 5 years from now we are confident that we can be an integral part of every cell-based meat missionary based on the value that we can provide. Okay, so to do all this, this is the team I'm working with. Let me first bring your attention to our advisors. So Prof. Fan is a founder, is the co-founder of Cell Research Corp, one of the largest stem cell-based companies in the region. Prof. Wenki is a pioneer in the field of nanotechnology and one of the co-inventors of this technology. And Prof. Ignatius, he comes from the industry, though he's presently in the university. He was formerly in PerkinElmer Medtronics, and he's helping me with the business and the technology. Srinivas, who's my CTO, has over 20 years of experience in the cell culture and cell technologies and general biotech space. And Emily, who was formerly from PerkinElmer, is helping me with the admin and operations. So that is us, Salivate Technologies. Just last month, we were recognized by the Good Food Institute as being one of the top 100 startup disruptors in Asia, and we are really excited about that. So thank you very much for your time, and I am happy to take your questions.
Thanks, Vignesh. It's a very comprehensive presentation, and you have a very impressive list of advisors. A couple of questions on my end. You talk about some of the competitors' approaches and solution. It looks like Salivate's technology is definitely better, but are you aware of any other technologies or solutions that's being developed that may also be of equivalence or maybe potentially more superior? So that's one. And related to that, for your current technology, are there limits? Because you have to pair it with a metal oxide, right? Are there certain kind of cells or meat cells that you feel the pairing may not be possible? And from a commercial standpoint, when you look at the total cost of the meat produced, how competitive can you drive the cost to be compared to what is currently the real meat product? Yeah.
Okay. So 3 questions. So for the first question, yes, there are different technologies out there, but in general, most of these technologies are either working with polymers, plastics, or they're working with organic coatings that kind of mimic the extracellular environment of the cell. So in that way, ours is radically different because ours is a thin film metal oxide coating, and it has a different set of benefits. So in that way, we are radically different. I must also say that at this stage, we have not found a cell that is not compatible with the optimal metal oxide coating. And it is also noteworthy that the present day solutions out there are actually compatible with our metal oxides. And we have data to show that also. So for your second question, second question is how competitive can we make the price point, right? Yeah. So the thing is, so there are a few components here that are necessary. A few areas need to be innovated before the price point can be competitive with traditional meat or meat as we know it. One of it is or rather a big chunk is in the media, right? Because that's where most of the cost is, right? So while many different innovations are happening in the media space, no one is really looking at the surface itself where the cells grow. So if I can just bring your attention to this summary slide here. Did you see this slide?
Yep.
Yeah. So a lot of innovation is happening in the media itself that is necessary for growing the cell. But there's very little on actually the surface where the cells grow. And so what we are showing is that by optimizing this surface, we are able to have the cells grow at least 2 to 4 times faster, right? So to give you a scale of things, for some cells, the media is changed every 2 days, right? And if it takes 10 days to reach a certain yield, with our surface, you reach the yield within 4 to 5 days, for example. So you already save on the media there, right? So that is already one saving. Plus, so this combined with innovations going on in the media space together, I think will make this possible.
Okay, thank you.
Coming to your third question about the cost of our coating, right? I believe.
No, it's okay. I think I get where you're coming from. Okay. It's all right. Anyway, I know that other panelists also have their burning questions. So over to you, Janet. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Johnny. Hey, thanks, Vikesh. I have two questions, two broad questions. One is pertaining to the technology. What you have is a proprietary coating. How long does the coating last? Can it be used as a treated surface reusable after each cell harvest? And because effectively the value proposition of the coating is to improve the adhesion, would that impact the harvesting of the cells? So that's on the technology side. And the second larger question I have is on safety and regulation. If you have done any toxicology reports and tests, and what would be the regulatory kind of pathways for your technology?
Sure. Okay, so maybe I'll answer the second question first. So the metal oxides we are using now are FDA approved, right? Already, these oxides are already used in dentistry for implants, and it's also used for bone implants, right? So these materials are already FDA approved. We have some toxicology studies, though we do plan to do more extensive toxicology studies on cells you eat proper. So that is in the pipeline, though we haven't done that yet. But we have done some preliminary studies to show that at the optimal coating, there are no unwanted mutations or due to the coating. And coming to the point of actually reusability, the plan is to not have these reusable. The reason for this is because within the biotech space and the food space, we wouldn't want any kind of cross-contamination. So the plan generally is it's a one-time use. Within the cell, what happens is a certain enzyme would be used to detach the cells from the surface. And even with our coating, there's no problems doing that. Like when we need to remove the cells, when we need to remove the cells, basically we use a certain enzymes and we detach the cells. So that has per any cell culture process, right? So the thing about our surface doesn't change anything about the cell culture process. Have the cells grow faster.
All right, thank you.
Vignesh, thank you for a very interesting presentation. You mentioned in the context of the regulatory pathway that the metal oxides that you're using are already FDA approved, which leads me to wonder, what is your intellectual property? What's unique about what you're doing? And even if you have patents, how easy would it be to circumvent those patents, given that the metal oxides themselves are not patentable and they're already recognized in the market?
Yeah. So what our IP covers is a combination of metal oxides to enhance cell growth or to retard cell growth. So if we are able to have a combination that makes cells attach faster and grow better, we can also make cells not grow at all. So basically, the patent covers all that, and we're actually in the process of we are working closely with our IP lawyer, going in depth into these points. Like I mentioned earlier in the presentation, different cell types have a different combination. So the direction we are going now is actually to have different IPs for the different combinations based on the different cell types. For example, for iPS cells, the combination is different. For certain bovine cells, the combination is different. So that is the pathway we are looking to go for. So it doesn't really matter what the material is. It's really a combination of thin film metal oxides to have cells grow faster. I hope I answered the question.
Thank you.
Hi, Vignesh. I'll just have two questions from the audience, or maybe one, depending on the time. Has the company considered licensing this technology to food manufacturers? And who are some of these large companies that you might be interested in working with?
Yes, I mean, so that is, so if you look at our vision, licensing is there. We have considered that, but we need to look at many other factors also before we come to a decision.
Okay. Second question, I think just now in your presentation, you mentioned that, you know, it can be applied in other areas besides food. Are you saying this because you are, you know, you're not very confident of the clean meat market? What's your take on this?
No, I'm not saying. I'm saying this because the entire clean meat market is utilizing biotechnology, right? So we want to contribute to the clean meat market with this technology, but logically speaking, if the clean meat market is already using what's there, what's being used in the biotechnology space, then what we design can also be used for that space, right? So from a business point of view, it makes sense to go into different verticals as the company develops. But we want to have our beachhead market as the clean meat market.
Thank you, Vignesh. Any other questions from the panelists? If not, thank you very much, Vignesh, for your time. We'd now like to hand the time over to Paul. I think one of the benefits of having a virtual demo day is that we are able to have startups from all over the world join us. And Paul is joining us here from Australia. Paul? Paul, you're on mute. Paul, you're muted.
Thanks very much, Keith. And I really want to begin by expressing my thanks to Trendlines for the support right through this accelerator. And it's made a really big difference. The advice and support and networks of Trendlines have really, quite literally, accelerated what we've been able to do at Ambit Robotics. Really appreciate that. Many of you will have traveled through Southeast Asia, and you might have seen the way that chemicals are applied to crops in Southeast Asia. And I've worked on small farms right across the region for over 10 years. And the image that you see here is fairly typical of the way in which chemistry is applied to rice, to corn, to potatoes, to crops right across the region. And there's a number of challenges with this process. So the first, which is fairly obvious from the image, is the health implications for the people that spray crops. There's environmental impacts from chemicals either drifting in the wind or traveling in waterways or being run off the farm and into waterways. But the real problem in terms of the way farmers see it and the way spray contractors see it is just the sheer amount of time it takes. So at the moment, it's taking 10 person hours. So a team of 2 people working for 5 hours each to spray 1 hectare. So it's a very slow and expensive task. And what's happening right across Southeast Asia is that people are moving out of rural areas. They're moving into the cities to get better jobs. And so there's less and less spray labor available. It's a very low status job. People don't particularly want to do it anymore. And it's making it hard for farmers to attract labor to their farms. And we think there's a very exciting opportunity to automate the spraying process. The product that we've developed is a very small robot. It's portable and able to be carried on the back of a motorbike from farm to farm. It's 6 times faster than spraying using a backpack sprayer. It's much safer for the operator because they're not exposed to chemicals during the spray process. It's much more accurate, so it's placing those chemicals just onto the plant and not into the air to be blown away into the wind or between the crops onto the ground. And there's a whole opportunity around the data that our robots can capture and the insights that we can bring to the farmer as well as others in the smallholder industry. As many of you will know, the crop protection industry globally is very consolidated. We used to have 6 large players. We now have 3 very large players who sell the chemicals that farmers need to protect their crops and ensure the food security of the region. But the market that we're interested in is actually the application market. And this is the army of people that every day, hundreds of thousands of people right across the region are applying those chemicals to the crops using a backpack. What's really interesting about the application market from my perspective is its sheer size. So we think of Syngenta, Bayer, and Corteva as very large companies, but actually farmers pay a little more to have a backpack spray team come and apply the chemical than they actually do for the chemical itself. So it's actually a slightly larger industry than the crop protection market. So The crop protection market in Asia is worth about $15 billion, while farmers are paying annually over $20 billion to have those chemicals applied to their crops. It's not just a large market, but it's also a really interesting one. So on the left-hand side, the chemical market is very consolidated, it's very efficient, very highly regulated, and very mature. And what this means is that it's very difficult for those companies to claim market share from each other. Gaining that 1% market share is actually a really difficult thing to do. On the other side, though, the application market is very fragmented, very inefficient, and interestingly, very unattractive to the people that are in it. So the teams that are going out and spraying crops today, actually, if they could, would do just about any other job. So it's not a market that the people that are currently in it particularly want to be in. And that makes it a very interesting market for us. The Ambit Robotics is all about building a robotics platform for the region that can spray crops and taking business away from the backpack spraying teams and setting those teams up as technology entrepreneurs. So shifting them from a very low status job, a very inefficient job, to being much more efficient with their time, much safer, and really shifting the status of the job away from a very low profile job that people don't want to explain to their friends that that's what they do, into something that's very high status and rewarding and a very technology driven job. What's interesting for the crop protection companies, the Syngenta, Bayer, Corteva, but also their other competitors, is that Ambit Robotics is a great way to drive a lot more value to farmers. So instead of delivering a great chemical, and these companies have some great products, and then finding that it's not being applied very well, and then the farmer can't extract the value from that chemistry, we can improve accuracy, improve the location of where that chemical is put, and deliver a lot more value from their product portfolio. We're also a great sales channel. So instead of selling through the retailer network, which is very inefficient and costly, they can sell through our franchisee robot operators. We also bring insights back to the chemical companies. So when their chemistries are being used, we video the plants each time, every 3 days, right through the crop cycle. So we're really able to get a sense of where pests and diseases are happening and the impact of the chemistry. The industry also faces a range of sustainability challenges. The perception of the industry is that it's dirty, that it's unenvironmental and unhealthy, and Ambit Robotics is a great avenue for those companies to really reinvent the image of their industry. At the center of our business model is the spray contractor, the person that takes our robot on the back of a motorbike from farm to farm. We're going to double their income by helping them utilize their labor much more effectively. We're going to keep them safer, and we're going to improve their status in society. And they're the customer for Ambit Robotics. But on both sides of their business are a whole host of other companies that are getting involved in what we're doing. So on the right-hand side, we have companies like PepsiCo and East West Seeds who need this technology in order to reduce the losses of chemicals that's happening with backpack spraying. They can get better pricing from farmers by reducing labor costs. And the reason they're coming to us is because they want visibility. They want to understand what their farmers are doing. So PepsiCo is the largest buyer of potatoes in Southeast Asia for their Lay's products. And they're testing one of our robots later this year because they want to have better visibility of their farmer suppliers and what chemicals their suppliers are using. And as I said before, the chemical companies are coming on board because of those insights and the new channel that we create. And Corteva is currently undergoing a trial together with Ambit Robotics. I'm going to pause there and give you some time for questions. But I have got additional slides on that Corteva partnership, and I'm happy to talk a little bit further about how we're working with Corteva. I'm happy to talk a bit more about the business model and how we charge spray contractors for the robot and how we recover the cost of the robot. Happy to talk about my background in smallholder agriculture and give any more technical details about how the robot works. But over to you, and thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Johnny here. I've got a couple of questions related to the business model and your operations. On the business model side, is it right to say that you will partner mainly the chemicals company and the likes of PepsiCo in terms of deploying and your robots in the farms, and that you are not actually engaging the farmers directly, right? In terms of selling them the robots. And number two, on the operations part, the robots can traverse the farm terrains. Are there any limitations to how they move within the fields and so on?
Yeah, firstly, with regard to the business model, we don't sell this technology to farmers. It's not efficient for a farmer to buy a piece of technology like this. It's much more efficient to amortize the cost of the robot over multiple farms. So we sell the robot to spray contractors, or will sell the robot to spray contractors who are able to move between multiple farms. What we expect to then see as companies like PepsiCo and East West Seeds, as well as the chemical companies, work together with us to help finance those businesses, to supply chemicals, to gather the insights from the robot. So it's really a coming together around that spray contractor. But no, we don't intend to sell the product to farmers. On your second question on terrain, the robot is designed obviously around particularly the Indonesian context at this stage, and it's able to navigate the farms as they are. The farmer doesn't need to modify the row, they don't need to flatten the row. The robot it's a four-wheel drive robot. It's able to operate in that environment. There are about 5% of farms that are really steep. You've probably seen them, and we won't be working in those really steep farms. So it does have to be reasonably flat, but that's about 95% of farms in the region.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks.
Thanks, Paul. I have some questions around how the robot works and how easy it is to use and to maintain them. So like specifically, for example, what's the payload for each of these robots? What's the battery life? How are they operated? Are they operated manually, or are they software based in terms of navigation? And do they require substantive training for these farmers to know how to use them? And how often do you reckon they need to be maintained or to be serviced?
Terrific, thanks, Janet. So in terms of the operation, what the person does is they pick up the robot, and then they use their mobile phone as a remote control, and they drive it in a rectangle around the edges of the field. The robot learns from that, and then it navigates the entire field autonomously by itself. So I don't think they necessarily require any in-person training. I think it's something you could pick up from a YouTube video. It's very easy to do. There's no button, there's only one button on the robot. So once you've gone around the edge, you just press the button and it goes. It's pretty simple. In terms of the capacity of the robot, at the moment, we sell a 5-litre robot, and that will need to be filled every few minutes. So actually somebody stays there with the robot. So it's a semi-autonomous solution. There's still labor in the system, but it's much quicker than doing it by hand. And that gives us some security about the operation. In terms of maintenance, most of the cost of the robot is inside the computer control system, and that will last for up to 10 years. It's certainly up to long-term operation. Some of the mechanical parts of the robot, so the tires and the motors, will need to be replaced every 6 months, every year or so, but they're pretty cheap. The motors are about $20. The tires are another $20. So they're very cheap, but yeah, they would need to be replaced, and there's no particular sort of skill or expertise to do that. They just bolt off and you can bolt new ones on. The whole design philosophy is towards something that's very simple and very suited to the environment in which it's operating.
Okay, thank you.
Well, Paul, I have lots of questions, but I guess we don't have time for most of them, and Janet covered some of them. But could you say a few words about the business model? I saw that you're talking about a leasing model, leasing the robot to spraying contractors. But I'm wondering how you will enforce those contracts when you have thousands of customers paying you $100 a year, $100 a month, or $120 a month, and they're located all over the world. How if someone stops paying you, how are you going to enforce that that contract?
Yeah, thank you. Look, just in terms of where we see this playing out geographically, there are some elevated regions in Southeast Asia where a lot of vegetables are grown. So there's some elevated volcanic regions, and Singaporeans will be very familiar with the Cameron Highlands, but Bandung, Indonesia, Chiang Mai, and Chiang Rai in Thailand. So there's some reasonably concentrated geographies with tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of vegetable farms around a fairly tight location. And I think that's really what makes the business model click. So we can provide in those locations service centers and physical locations on an economic basis because there is so much vegetable production in those very discrete regions. So you wouldn't have an operator or a farmer that's hundreds of kilometers away from the nearest service center. As you suggest, that's just simply not going to work. In terms of repayment, yeah. I think I don't particularly want Ambit Robotics to become a financing company. I think financing companies are better financing companies than we'll ever be. So the plan would be that there would be a fee, and as the suggestion on the slide here of $150 US a month per robot. And most of that would be financed. So most of what that contract is paying would be a financing fee or a repayment, and that would actually be to somebody else. So that bank or that lending institution would finance that cost and be in charge of recovery and repayments, and they'd be established financing institutions or leasing institutions in those countries with the licenses and the wherewithal to do that. So yeah, but we would roll in some recurring revenue back to Ambit Robotics for servicing and so forth as part of that fee per month. But most of it is finance.
So your model is really just to focus on the Southeast Asian markets? I mean,
yeah, I think that's where the big possibility is. So if you look at countries like Vietnam, Thailand, and Indonesia, where you have a growing manufacturing sector that's pulling labor out of rural areas, I think that's where there's a lot of promise. If you jump over to Europe or Australia or the US, they use tractors. They're already automated spraying at a much larger scale. So it wouldn't work for that market. But there are certainly markets through certainly China, India, and there's a lot of potato in Eastern Europe as well. It's still backpack sprayed.
Thank you.
Hi, Paul. I have a few questions from the audience. The first question that we have is, besides spraying chemicals, what additional features do you think you would add to the robot in future?
The main task that consumes a lot of labor apart from spraying is weeding, and the robot is adapted to weed. We can do chemical weeding very easily. We can just simply locate a spray nozzle over the row and weed between the plants. But the standard across the industry now is mechanical weeding, which is obviously organic and chemical free. Once we've got a foothold in the spray market, then we'd really like to be able to move into mechanical weeding.
So last question, considering that the robot now needs attention from the operator because of the load that it can carry, could this solution be something, do you have a solution for this, or would you be looking at a non-autonomous version, for example?
Yeah, we have. So you can set up a tank and you can have the robot to return to that tank and refill on the farm, and that will work just as well. I think in talking to the customer and talking to the spray contractor and the farmer, they actually want to be there. And I think that's just one of the interesting things about, I guess, human behavior, is that people want to monitor, they want to have some control over it. And that obviously reduces the cost not having that tank. Yeah, so that's where we are at the moment. But yeah, if the market is looking for something fully autonomous, and certainly there are Australian farmers that are coming to us and saying, yeah, look, we'd be interested in a fully autonomous robot, then yeah, we could go that way. But there's a big market out there at the moment for backpack sprayed farms, and that's where we're starting.
Sorry, I thought that was the last question, but an interesting one just came in, so I thought I'll ask this before we end. There's a lot of work going on now with flying drones doing spraying. Why is a land-based robot better than a flying drone?
We're not always better than a drone. There are situations in which a drone is a better choice, and I think it's a very big market. It will end up being both a mix of ground-based and drones. The advantages of ground-based is, firstly, they're much cheaper. So we're looking at a $1,500 robot. A typical spray drone that you'd be getting today is $10,000 with all the equipment that you need. You also then need a vehicle to travel around, so you need a car or a van, which really drives up the cost of your business, of your spraying business. So we've got a motorbike and a $1,500 robot versus a car and a $10,000 drone. You can see how recovering the cost of that equipment becomes a lot easier. In Southeast Asia, there's a lot of regulatory issues around drones. Drones are regulated by civil aviation authorities and by the military. And the Ministry of Agriculture, while they might like to have drones in the system, are not always as powerful as the military. So it's still a lot of regulation in place. And there are accidents that happen with drones, and that is slowing down that change of that regulation in Southeast Asia.
All right. Thank you, Paul. Thank you so much for your time. With that, we've come to the end of the 3 presentations. Thank you to all our panelists for all your questions, as well as some of the feedback and insightful comments that you have had. The rest of the questions that we've taken note of your questions, and we will be sending them to each of the companies. So do look out for that as well. Right now, I'd just like to share my screen. These are some of the contact information for the rest of us here at Trendlines. There's Anton, Sarai, and myself. Each of us look at a different part of what AFIC does. So if you have any questions or you have an interesting technology that you would like to join, you would like us to take a look at, please feel free to contact us here. So with that, I'd like to hand the time over to Anton for his closing remarks.
Hi everyone, my name is Anton Bo. I'm the CEO of Trendlines AFIC. I believe that it has been a very fruitful demo day for both the presenting startups as well as the audience. And a special thanks to the panel of Mr. Steve Rhodes, Mr. Johnny Teo, Ms. Janet Chia for availing your time and also posing those important questions to the startups. I would like to take this opportunity to also thank the mentors and industry and corporate partners that have been working with us for the past 3 months, working with the startups. Your insights and inputs have been very crucial in helping to sharpen the business models, the ideas, and also to develop the technology pathway for the startups so that they are really addressing the real needs of a market, not just an idea to make the world a better place, but there is a real pain point and problem statement that we are solving. Initially, we planned for the demo day to be held in the incubator with gas and big celebration, and also, of course, the face-to-face interactions that we are missing here. But the fact that we are doing this virtually right now, I think it is a sobering reminder that we are still in the midst of very challenging times. So we decided, okay, we keep the celebration minimal and put the focus on really solving the tasks and the milestones that are ahead for the startups, because that's really the best way to make contribution to the community. And we will still continue to work very closely with the cohort companies to connect them to the investors and partners with the objective of speeding up the commercialization of their technologies. right? So even though the demo day marks the official end of the Accelerator program, but I think the real work has really just begun. And we are looking forward to working closely with the startups. And to the budding entrepreneurs out there in the audience, we hope that the demo day has been inspiring to you to start at least thinking about innovating in this sector. And you as entrepreneur play a core role in the startups ecosystem. And remember that your ideas, your innovations can help to improve the human conditions. So look out for our call for the second cohort application sometime towards the end of this year. Again, if you have any idea from now till then, feel free to write to us. Our contacts are in the screen as shown by Keith. And also for investors or industry partners that are interested to reach out to the startups, feel free to write to us and we will do the work of linking you up. So thank you, and a big thank you to Keith, as well as Andrew Lai from Enterprise Singapore for all the coordination for the logistics and the setup of this demo day. Thank you very much for joining the demo day, and I pass the time to Keith. Thank you.
All right, I think that's all the time that we have today. Thank you again to all our panelists, to all the startups, and just really everybody who has had a part to play. A lot of this really wouldn't have been possible without all your support. And you know, in this journey, ESG really has been the biggest supporter, and you know, the biggest amount of help has come from you guys. So thanks a lot, Johnny and your team. Thanks, Janet, and thanks, Steve, as well. So, all right, we hope to see you guys at our next demo day. We'll definitely keep you guys posted. Thank you very much.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.